Hi campers, I'm so excited that you're here with me today. We're going to be making some alien cake pops. Now, before we even start cooking or baking anything, I'm going to give you a rundown of the ingredients that we need. And you can modify these in any way that you need. You can make the cake from scratch. You don't have to add the eyes. You don't even have to make aliens. You can make whatever you want. But we're going to make cake pops today. So, I have one box of just vanilla cake mix. I got this at Target. You can get it at Walmart, Target, any kind of grocery store. I also have one box of gluten-free funfetti cake mix. And we're going to make both kinds of cake pops today. I have eggs. So in total, to make both cakes, I needed 6 eggs. But if you're just making one box or one type of cake, it could depend how many eggs you needed. But for each cake, I used 3 eggs. And then you're going to need some kind of oil. I used olive oil. You can use canola oil, vegetable oil, any kind of oil you have on hand. And then I have some straws. These are going to be used as the sticks to hold our aliens up. And then I have 2 bags of white chocolate chips. So the reason I picked white chocolate chips is because it was easy to dye green, because I'm going to make green aliens, and maybe even blue or red, I don't know. But the white chocolate chips are the easiest to change colors without having it turn a weird color. I have some food coloring. So if you use chocolate like I am, you're going to want to make sure you get oil-based food coloring. Again, you don't have to use food coloring at all. You could just use milk chocolate if you wanted to, if you like that kind of chocolate better, or Oreo chocolate, or I mean, you could probably even melt like Reese's peanut butter cups if you really wanted to. And then I have some candy eyes. I also got these at Target. You can make these from scratch. You could just get little pieces of candy, like you could make their eyes sweet tarts or gummy bears, whatever you want. But I got these candy eyes to make them look like the aliens from Toy Story, because that's one of my favorite movies. We will also need frosting. So I just got normal vanilla frosting. You can get whatever flavor you want. If you're making chocolate cake, you can make chocolate frosting. It doesn't matter what flavor as long as you love it. So I got 2 containers of it, one for each type of cake we're making today. And then as far as like kitchen utensils that I use, I have 2 cake pans, which you'll see when I'm dumping the bowls of mix into there. 2 mixing bowls. They don't have to be as big as mine are. You can just use normal bowls. You just might have to mix it in smaller batches. And then I also have a baking sheet. This is what I'm going to use to put our finished cake pops in and let them set and harden, so then there's that nice like crunchy chocolate outside that makes a cake pop a cake pop. In any part of the oven, you're going to want to have your caregiver help you, or if you're old enough to use the oven by yourself, feel free to do it by yourself, but to make sure you stay safe, have your caregiver do it, or if you're doing it yourself, make sure you have oven mitts or some sort of hand protector for your pulling hot pans out of the oven. You don't want to get burned. That would not be fun. Not a fun week at camp. You want that to happen. And then one other ingredient that I use is cooking spray. You can use the same oil if you want to. This is just to make sure that the cakes don't stick to the pan. It's okay if they do, because we don't need them to be like perfect squares or anything, because we're going to crumble them all up and mix them with this frosting eventually. So it's okay if it sticks. It's just a little bit easier if it doesn't stick. So you want to spray it or wipe the pan down with butter, oil, anything like that. But I'm super excited to start cooking with you guys, and so just keep watching this video and we'll move on to the next part. Hi campers, I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. My name is Bear, and we're going to be making some cake pops today that look like aliens to fit in with our space-themed camp week. So I have gluten-free cake mix as well as normal cake mix, just to meet everybody's needs. Throughout this video, I'm going to be giving some tips and tricks to adapt this recipe and make it a little bit faster. So that's why I'm using the cake mixes, to make it quicker and just make sure the cakes turn out well. So to begin with, I'm going to take each of these cake mixes out of their bags and putting them into one bowl for the normal cake mix and one bowl for the gluten-free cake mix. I also have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and that's what it says on the box. Alright, so the next step is to add the water. So for the normal cake mix, which is like this, it's just vanilla flavored, we need 1 cup of water. So I'm going to add this into my just normal vanilla cake mix bowl. Alright, and the other one, the gluten-free cake mix, calls for also 1 cup of water. So I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, so now we've added our water, so we have 2 more ingredients left to add. First we're going to add in 1/3 of a cup of oil. This is my 1/3 of a cup measuring cup, and I'm going to add in 1/3 of a cup of oil to the gluten-free cake mix bowl. So that's right here. I'm going to pour it in here. And then I am going to change it for this next one. I'm just following the box instructions. The vanilla cake mix calls for 1/2 cup of oil. Now this process is a little bit more complicated, so definitely have your caregivers help you, and it can be a fun activity for everybody to do together as a family. So now that I have the oil in each of our cake mix boxes, I'm going to add in 3 eggs to both batches. So here's 1, here's 2, 3. And if you get any shells in there, you can just pick them out. That happens a lot to me when I'm cracking eggs. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing to this bowl right here, which again is our gluten-free cake mix. So I'm going to take my egg, here's number 1, add it over here. Alright, so that's all of our ingredients for our cake. It's super easy when it comes out of the box and hard to mess up, so that's why I really like cooking them out of the box. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to need a whisk, and I am going to mix all of this together for 2 minutes. So we're just going to give it a good mixing for 2 minutes. So during this time, you can feel free to talk to your caregiver or your siblings or anybody in your house or apartment or wherever you live and tell them your favorite animal and why it's your favorite animal. Or you could try to come up with a fun song to sing or a fun dance to go along with the mixing. Since we are making alien cake pops, does anybody have any super fun alien movies that they like, or superheroes that are aliens, or anything like that? So I'm just going to mix this until it's all one consistency. So right now, this is what we're working with. It's nice and liquidy, and it's easy to pour. Just a couple more whisks. Alright, so now I'm going to clean off our whisk because we're going to need it again for the other bowl. So I'm just going to set it in the sink for now. That's all we need to do for our cake mix. So I have a pan right here that I'm going to spray with some cooking oil, or you can use butter or any other kind of non-stick spray or oil you have. Going to give it a good coating. So this is what my pan looks like all sprayed down. I made sure to get all the sides just so we won't have any problems with the batter sticking. So now I am going to pour this bowl into the pan, making sure to keep it pretty even. And if it's not even, we can always scrape the bowl out after and spread out the batter evenly. I'll show you how I do that. Alright, I'm gonna grab our whisk again and just get the rest of this out of here. Alright, that should be pretty good. This is what my bowl looks like after I'm all done. Alright, so this is what our cake pan looks like. I'm just gonna give it a gentle little swish back and forth just to make it all even. And I'm gonna set this off to the side till we're ready for both of them to go into the oven. Alright, so I rinsed off my whisk. Now I am going to use it in this bowl right here, which is our gluten-free cake mix. And this one has fun sprinkles in it, so our aliens are going to have fun sprinkles inside of them when they're all done. So same thing, I'm just going to whisk it all together. Alright, so this batter is a little thicker than our last one, but that is okay. It'll just make a little bit denser cake. But in the end, then we'll just add some more frosting to make it yummy and delicious cake pops. Alright, so I'm going to grab my other pan, which looks like this, about the same size as the other one. And same thing, I'm going to use spray. If you do have a gluten allergy at all, you can use gluten-free spray of any kind. Olive oil works too. If you use olive oil, just get a paper towel, a little bit soaked with it, and just wipe it all around the corners of the pan. So this one looks like this. And now I'm going to just give the batter a couple more stirs just to try to loosen it up a little bit. And now I'm going to pour our batter into our bowl. So you can see all the fun colors in there. These are going to make some really cool aliens. Alright, so same thing to try to get this all evened out. Is I'm going to give it a good shake. So I'm going to use our whisk and just spread it into the corners a little bit. So here is my cake all spread out. It doesn't have to be super perfect because we're going to end up crumbling all of this cake once it's done baking and cooling anyway. So if it's not perfectly even, don't worry about it. It will still turn out great. So I'm going to set this off to the side and I'm going to place both of these in the oven. They do need a little bit different cook times, but that's okay. Here's my oven, and I am going to take my oven mitts. This is the part that your caregiver should do, just to make sure everybody stays nice and safe. So I'm going to take my one pan and put it on the bottom rack. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other one, but put it on the top rack. So I set a timer for a half hour, and I am going to come back and check the cakes when they're done. But in the meantime, you can do anything you would like. You can clean up the dishes if you have to, play a fun game with your caregiver or your siblings or whoever's at your house with you. Hi campers, welcome back. So the next step was to take the cakes out of the oven, which I've done, and they're cooling on top of my stove. I'll show you what they look like on the top. They're nice and golden brown, and they're pulling away from the edges a little bit, so I know they're done. But just to make sure, you can also poke it with a toothpick, and if it comes up clean, then you're good to go and just let it cool. I'm going to let mine cool for about 10 minutes before I start crumbling them. I don't have any toothpicks, so I'm just going to use the end of a fork to check it. And I'm going to stick it in the cake, and it came up nice and clean. There's no cake parts on there. And then same with the gluten-free one. I'm gonna stick it in the middle and pull it up, and it came up nice and clean. So I know my cakes are done when that happens. If batter were to come up with it, that's perfectly fine. You just throw it back in the oven for a couple more minutes. Again, anytime you're using the oven, make sure a caregiver is there to help you if you're not old enough to use it by yourself. But yeah, so I'll check back in when our cakes are cooled. So in front of me, I have one of my cakes. This is the vanilla cake, just for reference. And I am going to shred it up with a couple of forks and put it into this bowl. So I'm gonna grab the 2 forks and just start crumbling it like this. So it's still going to be pretty warm since I only let it cool for about 10 minutes. Which is okay, but you just want to be careful to make sure you don't touch the hot part of the pan. This might be another part where you need a caregiver's help, just to make sure no injuries happen during making our fun cake pops. So I'm just breaking up the big chunks. There's going to be like pieces like this where it's more of the crust from the bottom, which is totally okay. You just want to break it up a little bit. That's going to make the cake pops taste even better because the darker the cake, the more flavor it has. So I still have some big chunks over here. So I'm going to clean off my forks and set them aside. And then I am going to put my oven mitts back on because this pan is still hot. This is what a caregiver could do for you kiddos. So I am going to dump this into here. Try not to spill too much, but it's okay if you do. I'm going to set this back on the stove just to keep it out of my way. This is what it looks like in the bowl. So I'm just going to keep using my forks and breaking it apart. So I'm going to let you guys see that. Break it apart. And the good part about still having warm cake is that it will make the frosting easier to incorporate into the rest of our cake. So I'm just going to clean off my forks, and I'm going to do the rest of this by hand. So I'm just going to pick up some of the bigger chunks and rip them all up. So this is about the consistency that I got for my cake. So now what I'm going to do is take one of my cans of frosting, just a normal like soup spoon, cereal spoon, and I'm going to take the cover off of this frosting. Again, you can use any kind of frosting you like, whatever flavor, whatever color. You can make it from scratch. And I'm just going to spoon in a couple globs of the frosting. So that's about, this is what the can looks like now. So I used about half of it. And now I'm just going to mix it with my hands because I think that's going to be easier. But you can also use a spoon if you don't like touching all of this. So we're going to want it to be almost like a Play-Doh consistency where we can shape it into whatever shape you want to make your cake pops. I'm just going to make them in circles or spheres. So you can always test to see if it's ready by just taking a chunk of it, see if you can roll it into a ball. So I can roll it into a pretty good ball. So this is about the consistency that I would like. So I added about 2/3 of the can probably. Alright, so for the next part is we're going to need to form these into balls and then put them on a baking sheet to cool. I'm going to get a piece of parchment paper out. You could use tin foil or you could put it straight on here. I'm just going to make cleanup a little bit easier and make sure it doesn't stick. I would say if you put it straight on here, maybe spray it or wipe it down with some oil or butter just like we did with the cake pans. Alright, so now I am going to form our cake balls. So you can make them however big you want. I'm just going to make them roughly this size and just place it onto the baking sheet. So I will check back in with you guys once I have all of the vanilla cake pops made. Hi campers, welcome back. So this is my finished product for the vanilla cake pops. It made a lot of cake pops, so you can make them smaller if you want more of them, or bigger if you want huge cake pops. So it all really depends on whatever you want to do. So for now, I'm going to set these aside and let them cool while we do the gluten-free cake pops. So this is the gluten-free cake. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other one, just shred it up with forks. I feel like that works the best. Still be careful because this pan was recently in the oven. Alright, so I got it pretty shredded. So now I'm going to transfer the crumbs into this bowl. and break up the parts that are a little bit bigger still. Alright, so I'm going to use the rest of this frosting, which is gluten-free. It says right here. So I'm going to use the same frosting as I did with the last one. I'm going to use the rest of this can and then part of that second can of frosting that I have. My dog has come to join us make cake pops. There she is. So I'm just going to do like 2 more scoops for now. And if we need more, we can always add it later. But same thing, I'm going to use my hands to mix it. I feel like that's just a little bit easier. So these cake pops are going to be a little bit more frosting filled, just because this cake was warmer, so it didn't take quite as much frosting, but they'll still taste just as good. Hi campers, welcome back. So I have 2 trays full of cake pops, or cake balls I guess they are at this point. So I'm going to set these off to the side and let them cool, and we're going to move on to melting our chocolate and coloring it fun colors if you want your aliens to be green or pink or purple or whatever. Hi campers. Alright, so I'm going to pour about half a bag of chocolate chips into one bowl and then pour the rest into the other. So maybe we will need 2 bags. I did do a test batch to begin with, so you might only need 1. But for now, that's how many we'll do. So I'm going to add a little bit of oil in just to make the chocolate melt a little bit better and combine a little bit better. So I'm going to pour it into the cap just for measurement. Probably use about a cap full of oil. It's probably about a teaspoon or so. Alright, so to melt these, I'm going to put them in the microwave for about 30-second increments. It took about a minute the first time I did it, so we'll see how long it takes this time. So I'll check back with you when we have 2 melted bowls of chocolate. This took about a minute for each bowl. I did them separately just so they would heat evenly, but it took about a minute. So I'm going to make 1 green and 1 red. So I'm going to add the green in right now. So this is what mine looks like. I might put it back in the microwave for a little bit longer just to keep it soft. And I might add a little bit more oil because it did get a little bit hardened when I added in the food coloring, which is normal, but I'm going to add a little bit more oil, about another capful, and stick it back in the microwave for a minute, or about 30 seconds probably. Okay, so this was about after 30 seconds more of microwaving. It's a better consistency to be able to dip a stick into it and put it into our cake pops. So I'm going to add red food coloring to the other bowl. About 6 or 7 drops. And just give it a mix. These ones might be more like a pinkish color, which is completely fine. Whatever colors you want to make. Or you can just keep them white too, or brown if you're using milk chocolate or dark chocolate. Alright, so I gave those a good mix. So next I'm going to take my straws. So what I'm going to do is dip the end into the chocolate like this, get a good coating on it, and then I'm going to grab a pan of our cake balls. So these are the Funfetti gluten-free cake balls. And what I'm going to do is stick it right in the middle of my cake ball. And you don't want it to come up the other side. If it does, just pull it back through, but about halfway through the middle. So I'm going to keep doing that to all of these. I think I'm going to make the Funfetti ones green and then the vanilla ones red. So I'll check back in with you when I have a completed pan. Alright campers, this is what a completed pan looks like. So when the chocolate starts to harden a little bit, it gets dry like this and it's hard to the touch. That's when you know that you can hold it by the stick and it won't fall. That's going to be helpful for the next step. So I'm going to get the next tray ready before our chocolate starts to seize up, so it already has. So I might have to stick it back in the microwave, which is completely fine if you have to do that a couple of times throughout this process. I have, so that's okay. All right, so I microwaved it for another about 50 seconds and poured in about another capful of oil to make it be this consistency. You want it super liquidy so it coats the cake ball as well as it can without making it too clumpy. If it does end up clumpy, that's okay. It will still taste great. So how I do this is I take it and then pour the chocolate on top of it, and then just let the chocolate run down the sides and set it back onto the pan. This part does get a little messy. My K-Pops won't be perfect, and that's okay if yours aren't either.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm just gonna give this a stir and then just keep drizzling it over the top. I feel like that works the best. You can also dip it into the chocolate bowl. I just haven't had very good luck with that. So I'm gonna check back in with you once I have more of these done. Hi campers, some quick tips to make this a little bit easier. Some of my cake balls are starting to fall apart as I am pushing the straw in. So you can do this more sooner after you get the cake balls formed instead of waiting for them to dry as much. I think that would really help the process, just to keep the frosting nice and incorporated, and making sure that the balls stay in ball form, because mine are starting to crack a little bit. But for the next part, you're gonna want super, super liquidy chocolate. So if you have to add more oil, that is perfectly okay. I think I'm gonna have to add more oil to mine. This is what my pink looks like right now. It's very, very stiff and hard to stir. So I think I'm gonna put some more oil in here and put it back in the microwave for the next part. And if your cake pops end up being a little bit too dry, because the frosting dried out a little bit, that's okay. Then you just know for next time to add a little bit more frosting when you're mixing the cake and the frosting together. And then if you don't have lollipop sticks like I didn't, you can use plastic straws, you can use popsicle sticks, you can use just about anything that's sturdy enough to hold up a cake pop. And then if you don't have anything that would work as a stick of any sort, you can just make the cake balls, and that would be just as fun. And then the aliens wouldn't have antennas, they would just be cake balls. So that'd be fun too. So I'm almost done with this one, and then I'm gonna put more oil in this bowl and put it back in the microwave for a little bit. Hi campers, so I'm back. These cake pops are a little bit harder to cover, just because they're not staying on the sticks very well, and that's okay. To make them stick a little bit better, you can put them in the freezer or the fridge to let them set before you dip them in chocolate. That's what I normally do, but I was just gonna try it this way to see if we could speed up the process so we can enjoy our cake pops quicker. So I'm just gonna do this first row for now, and then I'm gonna switch to the green frosting for the funfetti cakes and show you about 5 or 6 from each one. I'm back. So I'm gonna try this method of putting the cake pop into the chocolate and then spooning the chocolate over the top of it. See if that works a little better. This part's always the hard part, and they, like I said before, aren't gonna come out perfect, but that's okay, because we could have some lumpy aliens or crazy aliens, however you want to make them. So then I'm just gonna get off the excess and put it back on the sheet. So these ones are sticking a little bit better because the chocolate has had more time to harden than the pink ones did. So I'm just doing the same method of dumping the chocolate on top of it. You can swirl it around and coat the whole thing, but the straw tends to come out if you swirl it too much. So that's why I like the drizzle over the top method a little bit better. So I'm just gonna put them onto the parchment paper, and I'm gonna let this chocolate harden for probably 10 minutes or so. It might need a little bit longer or a little bit less depending on how thick your chocolate is in places. Mine is definitely not very even just because it's hard to do it this way, but that is okay. If you find an easier way to coat your cake pops, let me know and we can improve it for next time. But for right now, this is what I'm doing. And oh, see, like the stick can come out sometimes. But then you just reseal it with some more chocolate and put it back on the parchment paper. So I'm gonna let these harden. The rest of the cake pops I'll decorate later, but I'm gonna get my best 2 or 3 from each color and show you how I put the googly eyes on them, and then we'll be done and ready to enjoy our cake pops. So for the last step, I'm gonna open up my candy eyes. These haven't hardened for quite the 10 minutes yet. I still want them to be able to stick on this chocolate without melting off. So they're still pretty soft to the touch. I can still get it on my finger. I'm just going to grab a couple eyes, stick them on here. You can put as many eyes as you want. You don't have to put eyes at all. I think I'm gonna give this alien 3 eyes. Give this one just 1. And give this one in the back 2. And this guy, maybe he can have 4. And this one can have 2. But this is the part where you can use your creative mind and put gummy worms on here if you wanted to, or your favorite kind of candy, and make them candy aliens, or you could decorate them and make them ornaments or leaves or whatever you want them to be. You could even make them be rocket ships. That would be pretty cool. Or get a bunch of different colored white chocolate or whatever kind of chocolate you like, and make them galaxy pops. But here's the completed product. So we have some green aliens and some pink aliens, and I think even with the chocolate being a little uneven, it makes it look even cooler because the aliens are so unique and not the one next to it isn't the same. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching with me and cooking along or baking along with me. I really enjoyed our time. I hope you have a great rest of the week at camp. And if you need anything, my name is Bear, and just reach out and I can send you this recipe. It will be attached somewhere with this video, with the ingredients I used and the tools I used. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.